Hey everybody, today I'm going to take a look at Modern Genre Theory by Andrew Judd, and put out by Zondervan Academic. So I want to say thanks to Zondervan for sending me a review copy of this. This is my honest take on this pretty wild book. So I'll take you through my typical format, my typical review format of the main idea of the text, the research behind the project, the readability, the style, and then my general reaction to it at the end. So let's dive in. I'm going to say right up front, this is one of the most pleasant surprises of the year of 2024 for me, is this book, but I want to unpack what that means and why. So the main idea of modern genre theory. So Andrew Judd is a biblical studies scholar. He's Australian, and this is a book that is looking to, man, it's looking to do a good bit actually. It defines classical genre theory and then proposes a strong defense of modern genre theory and explains the differences between those two things, and specifically is gearing all of that towards what does that mean for the field of biblical studies. So how has classical genre theory, in his argument, how has classical genre theory, which is tied up with things like form criticism and such, how has that kind of hamstrung certain ways of reading scripture? And then what is modern genre theory's response to classical genre theory? How has it questioned some of the pillars or axioms or presuppositions of that classical genre understanding? What are the implications of that? And then how does that provide kind of a new way to reapproach the study of scripture? And there's a ton of implications of all that, but that's essentially what this book is about. It's a kind of a very full-throated defense of modern genre theory and a critique of classical genre understandings. And if you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, that's okay. I'm going to say more about that in a minute. Like, this book is, it's like an academic text, but it's intro level. It's like helping you step into understanding all these concepts. But it's all geared towards reading scripture well, reading the Bible well, specifically. And so the book is split into two parts. The first part, the first several, I think it's 4 chapters, are more of the broad theory approach, like defining the theories, under like critiquing classical stuff, proposing the modern stuff, and what does all this mean. It's all theory, which is the part of the book that I loved actually. And then the second part, which is a bit longer, gets into reading specific scriptural segments and kind of taking the implications of the first part into how to read different biblical genres or subgenres. How might a modern genre theory approach look practically? So there is a practical kind of edge to the second part of the book. But that's what modern genre theory is doing. So that's the main idea. The research of it. So Andrew Judd, this is his bread and butter scholarly field. I mean, he is a academic genre guy. And so the research is really good. I mean, really good. And especially in the early chapters when he's breaking down these different theoretical approaches. I mean, he is deep in the scholarly literature of all this stuff. Now, this is not, I already mentioned this, but this does not make the book hard to approach or inscrutable by any means. It's actually very easy to understand. Well, I would say it's easy to understand, especially given what he's trying to do. But it's really well researched. And at the end of each chapter, and I also love when books like this do this. I've said this about other books in the past, but there's kind of a guided reading list at the end of each chapter that proposes, here's a couple other intro level texts on whatever the particular topic of the chapter was, and then here's a deeper dive, kind of couple more texts that you might want to chase down. So I mean, it's just like a treasure trove of stuff to get into if you want to chase any of these topics down farther. So it's a great intro that then provides kind of a springboard into deeper reading. And yeah, I mean, the research, it's just really deep, really, really relevant, really easy to figure out where he's getting his information. Extremely good. And now that gets me to the readability of it. And this is one of my biggest surprises. So this book itself is a big surprise for me. And this aspect of the book is probably the biggest surprise of the big surprise, which is this book is really funny. Especially in those first couple chapters. Like, he seems like an extremely funny person. And this book is like shot through with humor, with dry barbs and sarcastic quips. And it was shocking at first because I thought I was picking up this like academic, like college course book, but man, he like he really leans into. I don't know if it's because the title's so dry and potentially the topic seems like not that attention getting. I mean, modern genre theory sounds stuffy. I don't know if he was like trying to play against type or something, but like it's a very funny book, shockingly funny. And so that goes like a long way towards kind of making it enjoyable to read once you wrap your mind around the fact that this is like a funny textbook. But also, I think that he clearly knows that not only that the topic could be stuffy, but that it's something that not a lot of people think about actively. And so he really walks you through in those intro chapters, carefully understanding the theoretical stuff that's going on and the implications of theoretical ideas when it's applied to genre. And then the second half of the book are these like almost case studies. Like what if you read the Book of Judges as like a horror movie, for example, which is actually one of the chapters. And then it's like the practical kind of case study approach does make it pretty easy to read. So it was really, overall, especially that first section of the book, I found it just so enjoyable to read, and I actually kind of had a hard time putting it down, which I was really surprised by. Again, why this book is such a pleasant surprise in general for me. And then that gets me to my final reactions, my final thoughts on this book. So I really, really, really liked this book, like the pleasant surprise category, I already said. I mean, this book had gotten some positive reviews from some readers I follow and appreciate, and that's the only reason it was even on my radar, and so I thought I'd give it a try because of these glowing reviews it had gotten, and then it still surprised me. And I think what I want to say just in general, I appreciated the second half of the book, and like some of those chapters, like I mentioned the chapter on reading Judges 19 as a horror movie, like that chapter stuck with me as a way to say like to shift the implications of just what genre mindset you apply to what you're reading are pretty significant in how you read and what you take away from what you read, and that chapter did a great job in particular. He also has a great discussion of exemplum reading, or like how when you read and you're looking for an exemplar character as opposed to just reading as a narrative and just letting the narrative teach you something rather than looking for models or examples in the characters. Like he teases out these implications in ways that are shocking, and you really start to grasp like the enormity of how genre can have a pretty significant and profound impact on your interpretations, which as a pastor and a teacher of scripture, it's like pretty significant to me. I'm still chewing on a lot of the stuff he talked about, but so I like all that. I like all that a lot. I think he's very successful in what he's trying to do here. But what I love, and this is the thing that surprised me, even probably beyond the humor and beyond just like the general approach to the topic that surprised me, the thing that I really loved and that really stuck with me and sat with me the most were those first 3 or 4 chapters. And there's a chapter in which he breaks down there's 12 tenets of modern genre theory, which seems like a lot, and it is kind of a lot, but it's just so surprising to me how rich and nuanced just discussing the genre of a text can be when you really let yourself dive into the implications of genre itself, of like a category, of a style of writing, the implications of reading a text as a particular genre or not another genre are staggering in ways that I, as someone who reads a lot and generally think about words and reading and books and argumentation, I kind of swim in that. I think about that stuff a lot. I still was kind of bowled over by his approach of breaking all those tenets down. And the more I read in that particular chapter that presented the 12 tenets, the more I thought like, oh my gosh, genre theory is so important. It's so important. And it really, really challenged me to circle back to genre a bit and how I'm understanding scripture, especially. And so for me in particular, I liked the case studies at the end. There were some, they were a little uneven. Some were more helpful than others, I thought. But those first chapters are like gold for me. And I'm going to go back to those actually over the years. I'm going to keep this book on my shelf and I'm going to go back to those chapters in particular because they're so helpful. They're so funny, but they're also just so clear and helpful on this, what can be kind of an invisible force or an invisible like influencer behind the reading of something like the biblical text, which is just genre theory. And so, man, I don't think this is a book for everybody by any means. I think I might have certain characteristics and kind of life situation and life stage traits that make me really, really like primed to appreciate this book. So I don't know if it's for you necessarily. Hopefully this review and unpacking it gives you a sense of whether or not this would be a good book for you. But for me, this is a fantastic book, a fantastic resource. I am, more than anything, I'm so glad that he put it out. I'm so glad that it exists, and I'm so glad that he's kind of like ripping open this topic in a way that's approachable for people like me who aren't in I'm not in classes at the moment. I'm not going to be exposed to texts like this probably otherwise. I wouldn't be exposed to genre theory otherwise. And so I'm so glad that this book is out there, and I really was affected by it. And so if you're like me, and like if you're a teacher, if you're a preacher, a pastor, spiritual leader, or if you're just really interested in literature, especially ancient literature, I think you too would probably gain a lot from this book. But again, your mileage is going to vary by a lot of those factors, and kind of life stage. But man, modern genre theory just came out of nowhere for me, kind of knocked me over. Definitely at this point of the year in July of 2024, as I record this, it is like my front runner of like biggest surprise of the year is this book by Andrew Judd. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Thanks as always for taking some time to watch.